Where's everybody?
Where's Chaim?
So the question now is with it.
Hi, Ernie. I know everybody else is.
We already know that you can get it after you've had all your boosters. You can get it whether you wear a mask or
Well,
not.
we hope that, we hope that
Yeah.
it'll be a week. That's what we hope. Not that everyone said that.
I don't know, maybe she has influenza. I don't know what she has. Hi, Yaakov.
Hi, good evening.
Well, how?
They said influenza was gonna be potentially worse this year.
Well, everything's COVID because we don't want-
Mhm. But they said this was the-
We're still on volume 11. We're still on volume 11.
Right, that's why you gave me
Yeah.
volume 11. Hold on. This is very strong.
Oh. So here they're sitting Shiva and they have colds. That should get complicated, huh? So then I guess they wear masks and people sit in the other room. I don't know.
I was just.
Hmm.
I went Saturday night.
Well,
Mhm.
isn't it funny? Our Ralph's, that's the whole kosher department and
Yeah.
everything, okay? And Entenmann's has very few items except the donuts in our place.
Uh-huh.
Vaughn's. On Third Street.
Hey,
Small, individual five, crumb cake, egg whip back. The rest of stuff.
Frustrating.
I've already done it. They say they're gonna quit.
Really? Is it safe to go there? Melrose, right?
no,
Yeah, it's Melrose.
Melrose and like,
Well, maybe it's been around again. I shut the old pavilion,
yeah,
shut there all the time. When they don't have what I need here.
we left off, I believe, 285.
Exactly.
Correct. Right. So just to review, last week, we spent a lot of time on the conduct of the tzibur during Chazar Hashatz, particularly not talking, and the significant averot and significant repercussions about the people in the shul not listening to the chazan, not answering amen. I must say that it was quieter this week. It was a little bit of halach lamaisa. By learning it, it was a bit quieter, at least in Kavna. I don't know about in the valley, but Rav Asher Meir comments that in some places, not only do people talk during the tefillah, but they discuss subjects that are likely forbidden to discuss in shul, possibly even forbidden to discuss entirely, due to telling Lashon Hara. Says Rav Asher Meir, needless to say, many people who talk during davening are saying things that are forbidden to talk about it in a Beit Knesset at all. Some talk about things that may not be discussed on Shabbos anywhere, meaning shul or not in shul. It's probably referring to business. And it is not rare to hear people say things that may not be said anytime or anywhere because they are considered either gossip or immodest speech. Quite often, these are the same people who would never dream of schmoozing in a theater or concert hall during a performance. And so they make a shameful display of which venues they consider worthy of respect and awe. Perhaps after enduring an extended period of being unable to pray inside of a shul due to COVID-19, it behooves us to make the effort to concentrate on Chazaras HaShatz and all other parts of tefillah as well, and ensure that the proper decorum is held now that we're back in shul. May one respond during Chazaras HaShatz to a bracha heard from a nearby minyan. It must be like you're at the kotel or something, and you're listening to Chazaras HaShatz in your minyan, and then there's a bracha, I guess, from a nearby minyan. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach points to a ruling of Shulchan Aruch. Even one who is not part of the minyan may respond Amen. Hayu asar b'malkam echad v'omrim kaddish kedusha afilu mi she'eno imohem yachol anos v'yesh omrim shetzarich shelo yeh mafsik tinuf avodas kachavim. There cannot be division between the two places, either tzoa, dirt, or something relating to avodah zarah in between them, in order for you to answer that. From the fact that the Shulchan Aruch writes may answer, Rosh Hashanah infers that one who hears the Chazaras HaShatz of a different minyan in the middle of the repetition of one's own minyan does not need to answer to the other Shliach Tzibur. Volume 9, Shir 7, where Rav Wosner is quoted as ruling that the same applies to one in the middle of Psukei de Zimra. Furthermore, poskim write that this principle can also be applied to one who is learning Torah in the shul but is not davening with the minyan. Such a person too need not respond Amen to every bracha during the tefillah, though he should try to stand and respond to Kedusha. Other aspects of the conduct of the tzibur during Chazaras HaShatz. What is the ideal position for the tzibur during Chazaras HaShatz? Should they sit or stand? The Ramah cites opinions that they should stand. Reading the footnote, the reason for standing is that those who need to fulfill their obligation of Shemona Esrei with the Shliach Tzibur through Shomea Ke'oneh would need to stand just like the Shliach Tzibur. Therefore, it was recommended that everyone stand, even if the Shliach Tzibur does not fulfill anyone's obligation, though it's not an absolute obligation. Or the reason given is especially pertinent according to the additional explanations for Chazaras HaShatz given above by the Arizal Rav Soloveitchik, like we learned last week, that it has its own elevated reasons unrelated to being Yotzei for somebody who cannot read. That's what we learned last week. So Yeshoimim Shekolam Yamdu. So people don't realize that it's a psak of the Ramah as a Yeshomrim as to why a lot of people are standing during the Chazaras HaShatz. The Piskei Tshuva quotes Achronim that many people are not scrupulous about this, and there's reasonable support for being lenient. Saying great people are not makpid on that, and there is to be, you can rely on people. If by sitting he could listen, he could have more kavana, or maybe if he's weak or elderly. But it's certainly a good minhag to do. The Yalkut Yosef rules that it's entirely possible to sit during Chazaras HaShatz. The one who stands is praiseworthy. Mutar l'kahal hashevet b'chazaras hashliach tzibur la'achar kedusha birchas hakel hakodesh ulevad shelo yeshvu b'sochar ba'amet shel hashliach tzibur shemispalel. You shouldn't sit too close to the chazan. Elim ken hayoshev zokin or chalash, unless he's weak or sick. Uchsheyagia hashliach tzibur l'moedim, when the Chazan gets to moedim tzrichim la'amod u'lishtachavos k'sho'im moedim d'Rabbanan. You have to stand and bow. V'yisharu oindim ad sheyisaimu moedim d'Rabbanan. They should remain standing until moedim is over. Then he says, "Amachmer lamad b'chol tefillah chazor tavalav bracha." He gets an extra blessing if he stands during the Chazar Sashats. Now, many times, the Shliach Tzibur can make a mistake, and he forgets something, such as the Alav Yovel. Must he return to the part that was forgotten and recite it again? So, in order to answer this question, we must determine whether he's considered like an individual who forgot or not. The Gemara in Brachos 29b rules that an individual must repeat Yalav Yovel forgot. The Gemara in the source below also concludes that in the case of a tzibur, one need not repeat the Shemona Esrei, since Yalav Yovel can be recited at a later tefillah that day. Rav Chia bar Tzoli, v'Hadar Tzoli. Rav Chia davened twice. Omer Rav Zeir, my time of it Marachi. Rav Zeir wanted to know why Rav Chia davened twice. El Adlad Kamar the Reish Yarchab. It's because he didn't mention Yalav Yovel. Ba'atanya Tov Lo Hiskir Shel Rosh Chodesh Barvis. If a person made a mistake and didn't say Yalav Yovel and Ma'ariv, ein machzir nafso. Neshiach Lamer b'Shachris, because he can say it in Shachris. And if he missed it in Shachris, ein machzir nafso neshiach Lamer b'Musafin. And if he mixed it in Musafin, ein machzir nafso neshiach Lamer b'Mincha. So he just still didn't understand why he repeated it. Amar lei, lavit marlo am Rav Yochanan b'tzibur shanu. The din about not having to repeat it because you're going to say it in the next tefillah, that's regarding the tzibur. But a yachid would have to repeat it again. That's why Rav Chia repeated it twice. Now, what is the case referred to here of a communal framework b'tzibur, in which one who forgot Yalav Yovel can make it up in the following tefillah? The Rif, among other Rishonim, writes that the reference to a tzibur means that the tefillah need not be repeated due to a tircha to the tzibura, an inconvenience. The Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah clarify further that the case refers specifically to where the Shliach Tzibur forgot to insert Yalav Yovel, and if he repeated the Amida before the Chazor Sashatz, it would cause inordinate inconvenience to the tzibur. We're talking about the Shliach Tzibur in his own private tefillah forgot to say it. So if he goes ahead and has to repeat it, it would be a tircha de tzibura. For this reason, not repeat the Amida, since Rosh Chodesh will mention again in any case. But any individual whom it's Yalav Yovel must repeat the Amida, even if he davens in a minyan. Says the Rif in Brachas, Tanya, Tov lo hiskir shel Rosh Chodesh Shachris, ein machzir naso. Neshiach tefillas hamusafin lefanav. He's going to daven musaf later. Om Rav Yochanan Tzibur Shan. We're talking about Tircha de Tzibura, Perish from Neitorach Tzibur. Aval Yochid machzir naso. And the Rabbeinu Yonah on the Rif explains of the Tzibur Shan Klomar, Shliach Tzibur kishitah ein machzir naso Neitorach Tzibur. Kivan shetfilas hamusafin lefanav sheyazkir bonim Rosh Chodesh. Aval Yachid machzir naso ben kishayim espal b'veiso yechidi ben kishayim. The Yachid would have to repeat it no matter whether he was by himself, whether he was with the tzibur. Would seem from the Gemara that this exemption applies to all the tefillas of Rosh Chodesh. However, the version of the text, according to many Rishonim, applies this rule only when you omit Yalav Yovel during Shachris, since Musaf is recited right after it. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch rules. Shliach Tzibur choizer mispal. Im talk also mispal b'kol ram. If he made a mistake while reciting it with a full voice, and he misses it, he would have to repeat, Chutz mishachar shel Rosh Chodesh. She'em shachach liat tzibur v'lo yizkir yalav v'yov ad shehishlam tfiloso, ein machzirin oso, v'nei torah tzibur. He's going to mention Rosh Chodesh again later on in Musaf.
Ernie,
Yes.
if the Shlich Tzibor, he forgets to do Yalav Yavo in his Chazar in his repetition of Shemon Esrei, why would he technically? Why would he have to repeat it if it's Midrabanan? And you look around, let's say for the most part, and you know everyone said Yalav Yavo. Let's assume that he said Yalav Yavo. It's their Rabbanon. I mean, I thought you're lenient with a bracha midrabanan that you don't necessarily have to say it again.
No, but there are additions to Shmona Esrei that the Shmona Esrei is not considered a valid Shmona Esrei if you didn't include it.
But let's say you forgot. Let's say you don't remember. For example, if you said the Omer, would you say it again? You'd probably say it without a bracha, right?
Correct, but so here it's not just you're not missing the Yalav Yavo, you've missed the whole Shmona Esrei. So, for example, there's some things that if you forget, you don't have to repeat. But for example, Mashiv Aruach Umorda Goshen is part of the Madbeya, it's part of the coinage of the Shmona Esrei. And if you forgot it, it's as if you didn't say Shmona Esrei. And Shmona Esrei Sai is Rachmininu. We need Shmona Esrei. It's for us.
No, but I'm saying it's the chazara of it's the repetition of the Shemona Esrei. Everyone already said it.
But you didn't say it.
No,
And-
what do you mean I didn't say it? If I'm the chazan, I would have said it. I didn't repeat it for the tzibur, but I said it.
But that, right. So if you missed it in Shachris, we have an out. You don't have to repeat it because you can do it in Musaf. But otherwise, you'd have to repeat it because we've learned last week and the week before that Anshe Knesset Agdola were misakein the Shliach Tzibur Shmona Esrei. It's just as important as the Yochid. And therefore, if he didn't say it, there's a Havamina that it would have to be repeated. Because otherwise, the Tzibur didn't get a Kol Ram Shmona Esrei. Because it's considered as if you didn't say the Shmona Esrei if you omitted the Yalav Yavo.
Okay.
I had an interesting discussion with Rabbi Siegelman, the Rav of Young Israel, regarding this issue and the issue of Tashlumim that we learned about. We learned last week that if someone didn't say something, you could listen to the Shliach Tzibur during his repetition, and if you have kavana, it's as if you said it. Do you remember us learning that a week ago or 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. So, for example, let's say Shkia is at 10 to 6, 10 to 5. And you said your own mincha at 4:40 or 4:45, and then you finished, and now the Shliach Tzibur started. And you realize, oh, I didn't say Yalav Yavo. So technically, you'd have to repeat because your Shemona Esrei is not good. So
what is the?
So we'd have to do if you'd have enough time, you'd have to repeat Shemona Esrei.
So what if you said Shemona Esrei, but you just?
But hang on,
Let me
formulate the question. Now,
What if you don't remember? What if you don't remember if you said Yalav Yavo?
Let's do the straight cases.
Okay, fine.
All of a sudden you remember, you finished, you did your Gimel Psios, you took your 3 steps back, you're done with your private Shemona Esrei. And now you remember you didn't say Yalav Yavo. So we learned, so it's as if you didn't say Shmona Esrei. So you would have to say a Tashlumim after Ma'ariv, right? If, for example, let's say you have 2 hours before Shkia. Well, you could just repeat a Shmona Esrei. You didn't say your initial, so that's why it says, if you recognize that you repeated, you have to repeat a Shmona Esrei. Not a Tashlumim, but let's say you don't have any time. So then you might have to do a Tashlumim. But a way out might be to listen to the Shliach Tzibur and have Kavanah during the Shliach Tzibur's Yalav V'Yavo, and that could save you a Tashlumim, Now, Rabbi Siegelman wanted to be Machadesh. It could be a difference between Mashiv HaRuach and Yalav V'Yavo. Yalav V'Yavo has been put in as a Me'ena Ma'ura. This is the Chakiri he wanted to say. I think he may have seen it with Rabbi Soloveitchik. Yalav V'Yavo is a Me'ena Ma'ura. It has to be, now, Mashiv HaRuach, from the time of Shmini Atzeres until Pesach, it's become the Madbeya of Shmona Esrei. So he wanted to make, maybe, by listening to just him doing it doesn't get you off for the Mashiv HaRuach, but maybe he'd be able to save you for the Yalav V'Yavo, because it's not as integral to the Shmona Esrei. I don't know if all of us agree to what he said, but it was an interesting chakira in this issue of saving yourself a tashlumim, because by listening to the shots, having kavanah, and he being moitzi you for something that you didn't say. So I want, all of you can think about.
What about my second question with respect to whether, let's say your kavanah was, I don't know, you thought about something and then, oh my gosh, did I say it? Did I not say it? What would you do?
If you're a suffix, you don't repeat it. Suffix brachas lahakel.
Okay.
It's suffix brachas lahakel in
Right.
general.
Right.
So, they talk about tzibur straight tefillah b'sof, avon shematzke b'rosh chodesh, aval im nizkar kodem sheishlim tfiloso, chozer l'ritzei ve'ein b'zeh toch tzibur. But if he remembers that he missed the Yalav V'Yavo, and he didn't take his 3 steps back, like all of us, you go back to ritzei. You don't have to go all the way. You don't have to repeat from the beginning. You go back to ritzei and you start from ritzei again. That's not too much of a tir. So that ruling is true when the Shliach Tzibur forgets Yalav V'Yavo and Rosh Chodesh. The poskim debate whether the rule is the same if one does not recite the bracha for Shabbos during Shachris on Shabbos morning, but instead recites the entire weekday Shmona Esrei. Instead of saying Yismach Moshe, Shabbos Shachris, you said the regular 18 brachos of Chol. Now that's not a common case, but it's discussed by the Beit Yosef, the Darkei Moshe, who's the Ramah. According to the Beit Yosef, the Gemara's ruling applies only to Rosh Chodesh, but if the Shliach Tzibur omitted the bracha about Shabbos and recited weekday Shmona Esrei, he would have to repeat it. See, the Levush, who's referenced by the Mishnah Berurah, explains that the reason for those who are lenient only in Rosh Chodesh is that it's a normal work day, so we must be sensitive to Tircha de Tzibura, and not to detain the people too long to make the guy repeat the whole Shmona Esrei. On the other hand, Shabbos is not a work day, so Tircha Tzibura, by repeating the Shmona Esrei, is not a significant factor, so that's why they make him repeat it.
So what about if you forgot Yalav V'Yavo on Shabbos?
Good point. So you want to say there'd be no Tircha de Tzibur to have to repeat it. I would say, which certainly would go back to Ritzei. Certainly, we said, because there's no Tircha. But if he finished it and then they recognized it, he might have an argument to say that he should repeat the Shmona Esrei, because there's no Inyan of Tircha based on this Levush.
Right.
Pshita, the listen to Baraisa Achi Mashma Meditani Lo Yizker Shel Rosh Chodesh. The Imlo can listen Biyom Sheyesh Bo Musaf Tov Lo Yizker Shachris Ein Machzirno. So if there is no Musaf, Biyom Sheyesh Bo Musaf Tov Lo Yizker Shachris Ein Machzirno. So because he has a Musaf Hilkach Vadei Mashma Rosh Chodesh Dafka Ko'amar. Well, it's only on Rosh Chodesh, but not on Shabbos. However, the Ramah in Darchei Moshe writes that the Shliach Tzibur should not repeat the Shemona Esrei, even on Shabbos, if he said the wrong Shemona Esrei, based on the Smak, the Tur, and the Rambam. It says, V'lo nehira li hai piska basra. Na'achar Smak, the Sefer Mitzvah's cotton, as opposed to the Smak, the Sefer Mitzvah's Gadol. He's a Rishon, a very early Rishon, that counted all the mitzvos. V'Rabbeinu Atur, Shehema Basroi, they're later, Iskimu Shelo Lachzor. They agreed that he should not be Choizer, even on Shabbos. V'Sudein Achroa B'divrei Rambam. And the Rambam didn't paskin, Shesvira Leid Lo Amrinan, Hu Adin, the Reatur Kos of Lashon Rambam Atzmo, the Kos of L'Basov, the Hu Adin Shabbos V'Yontiv, V'chein Efshar Lachriya Das Rambam, V'chein Ein Lachzor. So the Ramah wants to say that there, you should, even if the Shatz made a big mistake like that on Shabbos, he wouldn't have to repeat it. Shulchan Aruch only mentions the Shliach Tzibur not repeating the Chazar Shatz on Rosh Chodesh, implying that on Shabbat the Shliach Tzibur cannot rely on Musaf. However, Ramah writes that the Shliach Tzibur need not repeat Shachris on Shabbos, even if he omitted the middle bracha. Yeshoimrim dim tov b'Shachris shel Shabbos Yontiv Dino K'mo Rosh Chodesh V'Achinoagu. The poskim also discuss whether Shliach Tzibur must repeat the Chazar Shatz if he forgot to insert additions such as Hamelach HaKodesh during the days between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. In that case, Rav Shlomo Zalman Aruch ruled that it must be repeated, while Rav Ovadia, based upon the Meiri, says that the Shliach Tzibur need only return to Ata Kodesh L'Dor L'Dor after Kedusha and go from there. So until this point, we have dealt with cases where the Shliach Tzibur makes a mistake during Chazor Sashatz. If it's uncertain whether Shliach Tzibur made a mistake, this is like what Sai was talking about, and he has already completed the Chazor Sashatz. Some poskim, such as Rephaim Greenblatt, the Rivos of Ephraim, are lenient, not to require an additional repetition. Others suggest the same ruling even when he certainly made a mistake, due to the concern of Tircha de Tzibura. So that's exactly what Sai brought up, that if we're not sure what the Shliach Tzibur did, it's a Safek D'Rabbanan, and we would go L'Kula and not make him do it. With regards to mistake made during his own private tefillah, the Rambam writes that he may rely upon the Chazar Sashatz and he not repeat the silent Shemona Esrei first due to Tircha Tzibura. Avalim Tor Shatz Kishum Ispala B'Lachash. If the Shliach Tzibur made a mistake in his private tefillah, Ani Oimer Sheni Choizer Umispala Pam Shniyam, they Torach Tzibur. Otherwise, the Tzibur is going to have to wait until he finishes. He can rely on the tefillah that he's going to recite out loud. As long as he didn't make a mistake in the first three brachos. If he made some kind of mistake in the first three brachos, then he certainly would go back like an individual goes back. The Shulchan Aruch rules like this Rambam. Im tor shatz kishispal belachash lo'ilam ena choizer umispal shenis b'mnei tor chatzipur elosoymech alat tefillah shispal b'kol ram v'hu shelo tov b'gil rishon shem tov b'ayam lo'ilam choizer. He basically quotes the Rambam beferish. Okay. Now we move on to an aspect of Chazar Sashatz, the Birchos Kohanim. The Torah records a special mitzvah for Kohanim to bless the Jewish people. The Sefer Charedim records the interesting idea that it's not only the Kohanim who fulfill a mitzvah when reciting the bracha. Rather, the people being blessed also fulfills a mitzvah when they are quiet and they listen to the bracha. Says the Sefer Charedim, Levarach Kohenes Yisrael, Shenemar Kol Sevarchos Bnei Yisrael, Yisrael Oimdim Porim Keneged Pnei HaKohanim B'Shtika, Mechavnim Libam, they stand face to face, L'Kabel B'Chosum, Kidvar Hashem, Heim Nami B'Chlal HaMitzvah, they're also included in the mitzvah. And this is a a biography of the author of the Sefer Charedim. The mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim applies every day, as recorded by the Sefer Chinuch. Shnitztavu HaKohanim shivarchu Yisrael b'chol yom. Although in principle, the mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim should be performed on a daily basis, the Ramah writes, there's a famous Ramah, that the custom in the Golah is only to do so on Yom Tov Musaf. This custom was already mentioned, accepted by early Rishonim, including the Maram of Rottenburg. His reason is that the Kohanim must be in a joyous state to deliver the bracha, and due to the hardships of daily life, it is difficult for people to attain this state of joy on most days other than Yom Tov. Other reasons have been suggested as well to explain this custom, though none appears to be ironclad or entirely convincing. These include the custom at the time for the Kohanim to immerse in the mikveh prior to Birchas Kohanim, which was not always possible on a daily basis, or that the Kohanim in the diaspora do not have the highest level of the halachic presumptions of being true Kohanim that can be relied upon every day. I'm sure the Kohanim would not agree with that. Says the
I
Ramah.
mean, so that means that you can't rely on that presumption every day, but you can rely on it on Yom Tov. That doesn't make much sense. It would seem to be the other way around.
Right. No, and but in Eretz Yisrael, there's a higher chazaka that they're true Kohanim.
Yeah, but maybe it's a din of simcha.
It's a din of simcha too.
No, but the din of simcha is in Eretz Yisrael. Plus, maybe there's more of a din of simcha in Eretz Yisrael. I don't understand what that true, not true Kohanim means. That's very, that's, yeah. But I think
He brings the base of Ephraim, Siman 6, as giving that reason as to why they don't do it every day in the diaspora. The issue of the mikveh. Okay, let's see what the Ramah himself says. Yeshorim Deno Nois Kapav, Da Shori below Isha, Shori below Simcha. Bamavarch Yeshol Yos Besimcha V'Nogu Shenosei Kapav. This is talking about someone, I guess, who's not married, because then he's not besimcha. But the minig is that they do raise they do duchim. But noagu b'chol medinos elu, he's talking about Western Europe. She'ein noisim kapayim el b'yontav. Ishum sha'az shruim b'simchas yontav, b'tov leiv, hu yivorech. Ma'shenki b'shar yomim, afilu b'shabbos hashana. Shetrudim b'hurhurim al mechiyosam. They're worried about parnasav al bitum lachtam. They can't work on Shabbos. Afilu b'yontav ein noisim kapayim el b'tfilas musaf. We don't do duchen and chakras. Musaf, we're happy because we're about to have a nice lunch. Right? In Eretz Yisrael, though, the custom in most cities is to perform Birchas Kohanim every day. And this is also the custom in many Sephardic communities, even in the diaspora. Some Sephardic communities today in the diaspora recite Birchas Kohanim daily. Some recite it only on Shabbos. Some recite on Monday and Thursday. Others recite only on Yom Tov, like Ashkenazim. The Chidah, says the Chidah and the Tzitz Eliezer. It should also be noted that there's some well-known stories concerning great Ashkenazic authorities, such as the Vilna Gaon, Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Balatanya, and Rav Chaim of Volozhin, who attempted to reinstitute Birchas Kohanim on a daily basis. But unusual circumstances, such as mysterious fires that broke out and being placed in jail, they abandoned their plans. This was taken as a divine sign by many Ashkenazim that Birchas Kohanim is currently not meant to be practiced outside of Eretz Yisrael.
But the Sephardim still practice it.
Some Sephardic communities recite it daily. Some Sephardim do it on Shabbos only, and some on Monday and Thursday. And some Sephardim do it only on Yom Tov, like Ashkenazim. So it's a mixed bag. Now, what should be the conduct of the tzibur during Birchas Kohanim? We won't deal here with the laws of Birchas Kohanim. Rather, we will focus on because that will come later. Rather, we focus on the tzibur's conduct while the bracha is being recited, beginning with the issue of gazing at the Kohanim while they're reciting the bracha. Talmud Yerushalmi records that it's forbidden to look at the Kohanim while they are reciting the bracha. Rav Yosa, Zoysoy Meres, Sha'asr l'stakal b'Kohanim b'shas she'en mevarchin Yisrael. And the Shulchan Aruch rules that one may not look at the Kohanim. V'am yichavnu lebracha. They should have kavana. V'yu pneim keneged pnei Kohanim. Lo yistaklu b'hem. We should stand face to face with them. We shouldn't turn around. Some people in shul turn around. You should not do that. You should face them, but not look directly at them. Fundamentally, only intense staring at the Kohanim is forbidden in order to prevent the loss of concentration on the bracha being recited. Rashi appears to understand the reason differently than the Yerushalmi. According to Rashi, the reason seems to be due to the Gemara, which states that one who looks at the Kohanim will have his eyes dim. It seems from that passage that this concern applies only to Beis Hamikdash. So Rashi may hold that nowadays there's no prohibition against gazing at the Kohanim. So that's if we use Rashi's shot. But the other shot was that it's going to affect the Kohanim's concentration, which is evidence from the word yistaklu in the Shulchan Aruch and listaklu in Yerushalmi, which usually refers to gazing or looking intently. The Mishnah Berurah writes that the practice is to avoid even about looking at them briefly, to commemorate the Beis Hamikdash, where it was forbidden to look at the Kohanim even briefly, because they pronounced a special Shem Hashem. Says the Mishnah Berurah, you shouldn't look at their faces, nor at their hands. The Talmud Gan came, they shouldn't have a hesach hadas, lose concentration. You shouldn't look somewhere else either. Mikra din, you can't gaze or stare. Mishnah wants to say that in the Beis Hamikdash where they recited the Shem Mefurash, there was Shechina on their hands, so you couldn't look at it. As a Zeichel Mikdash, we do a lot of things Zeichel Mikdash. We don't look at them at all.
Outside.
Yeah. So Saul says the hands used to be outside the talesim. Now, one of the reasons that the Kohanim put their hands inside the talesim is again to cover their hands so that it will not lead to people looking at their hands. Now we know the reason why we don't want people looking at their hands as well. The Yalkut Yosef in the next verse discusses additional halachot. The one who is present in shul at the time of Birchas Kohanim, but is not participating in the minyan. He writes that nevertheless, the person should remain in shul and listen carefully to the brachos. Misha nichnas lebeit haknesset l'tzorchei zinyan. He walked into shul. V'nimtza Kohanim anosim eskapeim and they're duchening. Yamod v'yishma birchas Kohanim. You should listen. V'lo yetzem b'beis haknesset ad she'yisaymu habracha. You should not go out until they finish. V'chein mish yoshev oisik b'tor beis haknesset. Somebody is learning in shul. V'giu ad tzibur lebirchas Kohanim. Yamod v'yishma birchas Kohanim. You should stand and listen to birchas Kohanim. The position of the tzibur, the Magen Avram writes that fundamentally there's no reason for those being blessed to stand nearly. That tzibur rishon leishet. Rak sheyu pneihem neged Kohanim. They should face the Kohanim. The be'inan shei panim neged panim. V'chein mashmer b'zohar. However, the Tzitz Eliezer of the Yezer of Aldenburg and other Achronim write that the practice is to stand, though the elderly and the sick may sit. Alaf armer minig hakol la'amod b'shas brachos Kohanim. The standard minig is to stand. Re'ei poshet l'nidin shel asenu. Sheshaper yachal choyle v'tashes koach l'sheves l'makomo. V'lo l'turach lakum b'shas nesiyas kapayim shel Kohanim. In general, We learn Binyan Av from Sfira Sa'omer. We have Kamo, right? Because it talks about the standing wheat. And so therefore they learn from there that Sfira Sa'omer, when you do the mitzvah, Sfira Sa'omer should be done standing. Therefore, we learn that all mitzvahs have to be done standing from Kamo. I mean, when you shake the lulav, you do it standing. We learn it from Sfira Sa'omer and Kamo. When you say Kiddush on Shabbos, you do it standing. The Moyel, when you do the mitzvah smila, they do it standing. V'chahena.
You don't do Birchas Hamazon standing, so mitzvah d'oraisa.
Yeah, because that's Suda, correct? That's totally in
Okay.
Suda.
Leishe Basukkah, I guess you could say the same thing.
But later Basukkah, that's the special Inyan, right? The special Inyan. But anyways, so they didn't bring what I said, but since Birchas Kohanim is a mitzvah, for example, maybe that's the people receiving the bracha. For example, there's no Havamina at the Kohanim can sit, right? Because they're doing the mitzvah. How come there's no Havamina at the Kohanim can sit? I think
I
because
mean, there are a lot of brachas. Like if you make a bracha on thunder and lightning, there's no mitzvah to stand on that.
those are Birchas D'Rabbanan and Birchas Nanin. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about mitzvahs D'Oraisa. Now, for example, matzah, we sit when we eat matzah, but that's also sitting, eating. But go look at Sfira and look at Lulav. They learn Kama. Virtually all mitzvahs have to be done standing because of that rule. So I wanted to learn here that perhaps it's the same thing. Why do the Kohanim have to stand when they give us the bracha? Now there it says Lamod v'lashares. So maybe we could give a teretz, right? That maybe Birchas Kohanim, that's for avoda. Lamod v'lashares. Birchas Kohanim has nothing to do with the avoda. Birchas Kohanim is its own mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim. Okay, so they don't bring that either. They don't talk about the Kohanim standing, but we've never seen Kohanim not stand when they give us the bracha. Here they were discussing, can the Kahal sit? Okay. Other things to be ma'ayinin. Another element of the position of the tzibur relates to whether they should face the Kohanim or turn away. The Magen Avram writes that the tzibur being blessed should be face to face. And that's based on the Gemara and Sota. Tanya Yidach, Kos Savarchu, Panim Keneged Panim. Face to face. Maybe we should be standing with our backs to the Kohanim, and they make the bracha to our neck. Emor lahem. When you talk to somebody, you talk to them face to face. So the emor lahem is magdir, the mitzvah face to face. Shulchan Aruch indicates that he accepts this ruling when he writes that everyone standing in front of the Kohanim is included in the bracha. Im shachrei Kohanim, am shachrei Kohanim einam b'chlal bracha. That's why the rabbi, when you have shuls where the stage is a little bit further from the wall, and there are people sitting behind the Kohanim, so they don't stay there. They go into the bima to make sure that they're standing in front of the Kohanim. Am shachrei Kohanim b'chlal bracha. But in front of them and on their sides, as long as they're in front, even an iron wall won't be mafsek. For example, somebody who's out in the field who couldn't get to shul, they're onus. So even if they're not there, they're included in the bracha of Kohanim. Isn't that interesting? That in shul, the people behind the Kohanim are required to walk in front. But even though there might be people on the street behind the shul, they're included in the bracha because they're anusim if they couldn't make it to shul. The Mishnah Berurah notes that this is not referring only to people directly behind the Kohanim, even those who are behind them diagonally, on either side are excluded from the bracha. However, those standing in line with the Kohanim, directly next to them, are included, just like those standing in front of the Kohanim. So you can't be behind them says the Mishnah Berurah, Am Shachrei HaKohanim Hainu Afilu Ein Achrei Mamish, Ela Meshuchim L'Tzdoim, they're diagonally behind them. Even Shal Kol Panim Umachreim, since they're behind them, Ein B'chlal Bracha, Afilu Ein Pasuk, the Afilu Ein Mafsik Midei Beinam, even if there's not a real separation between them and the Kohanim. Aval Mifneim Mitzideim Perush Lo Maboy Elu Shem Lifnei HaKohanim. That's not a surprise that as long as they're in front, but Meshuchim L'Tzdoim B'Shitin B'chlal Brachim, Ela Afilu Keneged Stadi HaKohanim Mamish, the people that are exactly to the sides of the Kohanim, they would be included in the bracha.
Ernie, before we said, when we said Amen, if you heard Amen, you could say Amen unless there's Avodah Zarah or dirt in between. What did you mean by dirt in between?
Like tsoa. If you have dung within 4 hours.
Oh, got you. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Something where you would not be allowed to say the shame of Hashem.
Understood.
Or
Okay.
divrei Torah. What should the tzibur be doing during Birchas Kohanim? So before I read this, I sang in the shul choir at Beth Jacob under Chazan Glickman from when I was 4th grade, and Chaim Eisenberg, who's on this, also sang in the shul choir. So we know a lot of the same nigunim, etc. But Chazan Glickman would teach us a lot of halacha, and he was descended from the Gra, and everything he told us, this is the minhag Gra. So you're talking about a long time ago. You're talking about I was in that choir 50 years ago, more, almost 55 years ago. So there was in the Machzorim, in between the brachas of the Kohanim, a lot of the tzibur used to say these Yehi Ratzons. So he would tell us, do not recite those. That you just be quiet and bend your head and have kavanah to receive the bracha. This is like a mafsik. That was always my minhag. So let's see what the Shulchan Aruch writes, that one should pay attention to the bracha. The Ramah agrees that this is the best practice, though he notes that the common custom in his time was to recite psukim, right? B'shlashim avarchi and lomar shum pasuk, elishasku v'chavnu lebracha. The Ramah says, "Mikol mokom achshav shakwarim marichin arbei benigunim, nagu gam kein lomar psukim, ach yoister tov shelo la'omram." So you see, really, both the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah say not to say all those psukim, the various Kabbalistic things there. And the Mishnah Berurah says, the klum yesh evet shemavarchen osov ein ma'azin. What kind of servant is there that is busy doing your own thing, not listening to the blessing when someone's trying to bless you? What is everyone's minhag? Is everyone's minhag to be silent, or do you recite those psukim? What was that?
Yeah, you can't ask the Kohanim that.
Well, Yaakov and Jake, Sai and Yaakov are Kohanim.
Right, but
We don't know the
reminds me
answer
of
to
so
that.
far. When
was
I was
that?
growing up, we used to say in the first 30, right? We used to say the psukim right after.
Right, sure. We don't
But
do
now
that.
it's like you're
Because
not
of heaven.
supposed to. Is that similar here?
I think you see what they say, that the concept is to listen to the brachas and have kavanah to receive the brachas. And doing all these other things take away from that.
So what was it that we used to say it?
Because
now
the Ramah writes, the Kohanim used to be marich b'negunim. So because they went on and on for so long, they figured they're going to say psukim or something.
And of
I
course,
also
in Eretz
remember, by the
Yisrael,
way, Yaakov, in Beth Jacob, there was Ernie Katz's father was the Kohen Gadol, and it was from Europe. They would do I mean, Sai, did they do that in the Stiebel?
Yes, I mean, certainly, listen. When I first
The
came to
niggin that
Shaarei,
Chaim Eisenberg-
Tzedek,
The nigunim that they do
shortened
now, like at
niggin.
Sorry Tzedek, is a new niggin.
It was a short, well, no, I've heard that, it goes back, but it used to be a short niggin, but I've been asked, and certainly in the last 15 or so years, to lengthen the singing, so we do a double tune between, the sukkim, so that the Kehillah can say the lengthened tefillah. But it used to be where we used to only do one, and then they used to get upset. So we've been asked, I guess since then, we've lengthened our singing.
Well, we do one except for the last one, except for Shalom. We do
Oh,
one,
so-
and for
right,
Shalom, we do
right,
it twice.
Because there's a
Right.
longer
That's right.
tefillah there.
Correct.
Right.
But we see the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, and the Mishnah Brura all say that you shouldn't recite those psukim, right? But
Well,
Minig
Not
Yisrael,
those. Is it referring to those pesukim?
that's what they're referring
The
to.
ones in between that we now say? Oh, wow.
I
interesting.
don't, I may not, I think what they're talking about is after every, Yerecha Hashem, even not V'yishmerecha V'yichanecha and Shalom, there were psukim. I remember seeing those in the Machzor. So
That's
after
what I'm
each
thinking.
individual word, they would have psukim. I think that's what they may be referring, because everybody still does. I mean, in the United States, in the diaspora, in Israel, they don't do it at all. But in the diaspora, everyone does V'yishmerecha V'yichanecha and Shalom.
No, I'm talking about in between when we say Yivarecha Hashem, Yivarecha, and then you say Hashem,
That's right.
Yivarecha, Amen, and then the Kohanim start singing.
Right.
Okay. I believe they're referring to all of those things that are being said in between the parshas there.
Correct. But not the ones where V'yishmerecha, V'yichanecha, and Shalom. Those are Yiratzon or whatever, but they're not psukim. They're more lengthy tefillos. That I think everybody in Chutz La'aretz says. It's the psukim after Yivarecha Hashem,
Each
Yoyer
word.
Hashem Panav. Those psukim we don't say, and I've seen those in older machzorim.
Well, we need to clarify, because again, remember, what I was taught as a young boy, not to recite any of those things in between. That's all, just like Sai said, that by Rosh Hashanah, that on Rosh Hashanah, we don't say those things either between the different sets of shofar blowing. We don't say those Yehi Ratzons anymore, because it's considered to be a hefsek. So I was always taught the same thing about these various, the tefillas between the three sets of brachos. When the
Right.
Kohanim are singing, I'm quiet and I'm having kavanah.
But
Period.
that's not because of hefsek. That's because when someone's giving you a bracha, you don't say anything. You listen. There's a different reason than
different reason. It's
shofar,
not
which is a
hefsek.
hefsek. Yeah.
Not hefsek. It's not hefsek. But
Is
and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is referring to not to those things, the tefillas in between. Maybe there. I don't see psukim next to each yivarechacha, but maybe in those they certainly
In the
don't.
old Machzorim, they were used
They
to
do
be.
have, yeah, they used to be.
You bring
used
a- Is there a siddur here?
You bring an old Machzor, you'll find it. Ernie, we have a mezuman of Kohanim over here sitting on the Zoom. Maybe they can give us a bracha. We have a mezuman. Chaim, you're not participating, Chaim.
Yeah.
You don't want to give us a bracha here. We're all very happy.
You need to find the machzorim that have the
Walter,
Yiddish translation.
Do you
They
learn
have the Yiddish
Torah?
translation. They have those psukim.
Walter, you're learning Torah. There's no greater bracha than that.
Get gazette.
No, listen, I like my Kohanim to give
But
me a bracha also.
Yaakov, my raya here is the Ramah says the Kohanim marichin arbe b'nigunim noagu kein loymar psukim. So that's the Kohanim are only doing nigunim at the end of the last word where there's a paragraph to say. So that's why I always learn pshat that when they say Lola Amram, it's referring to these tefillas in between those three brachas.
Yeah, but I think that the Ramah, of course, writing or what,
Yeah,
in
but that's
the,
not
in the
psukim,
1600s, then they may have actually said it at all times. That may not be referring to the three lengthy tefillos after Yishmerecha, V'Yichuneka, and Shalom. I think that in those days, they may have actually
Said
been
psukim.
singing after every one to
Oh,
say the psukim.
Ernie, these are not the lengthy things that you're referring to are not psukim. They're tefillas.
Right, he wrote on.
I know, but they're Kabbalistic. You ever take a look at them?
Yeah, I know they're Kabbalistic,
Right.
but
So the Gra, definitely, because you're davening to Malachim. Remember, you don't want to say Machnise Rachmim on Slichas. Remember in Slichas, there's a tefillah at the end of Slichas, Machnise Rachmim, where it refers to the angels who bring in the Rachmim. So the Gra said, absolute lomet an aleph. We should not say that. There's a big debate. Do you say that or do you not say that? So again, Chazon Glickman would say, don't say that. And he was opposed to these tefillahs as well, because they were Kabbalistic. It has to do with Malachim, the Malach HaMamuna, this, that. So he held the Gra was against that. So maybe Ein Chanami that the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah are not referring to those. Maybe there'll be another discussion regarding that. But I myself am curious. So that was my own personal meaning, not to say those tefillahs, because I was taught a long time that Chazon Glickman not to do so. But maybe that's only a minhag HaGra. And the minhag HaOlam is to say those tefillahs.
But those tefillas are on chaloimus and all kinds of things that it should be the toiva.
Correct.
I'm not sure if that's exactly Kabbalah. I'm not sure where that comes from either. We don't. Do we know who was the mechaber of those tefillos?
We'll go. Listen, I see that the Tzurba, they didn't clarify what they were talking about, and we'll clarify. Okay. We've certainly learned that it's best to be silent to receive the brachos. Okay, let's conclude with women, because Susie's been learning here with us and she's hanging in there, waiting for something relevant to her. Are women included in mitzvah berachos kohanim? Now, before we go any further, since it's a bracha every day, right? We just learned the kohanim are. Why it's not a mitzvah sasei shazman grama if it's a daily mitzvah. So l'chora, why would women be excluded? So if we accept the opinion of the Sefer Charedim quote above that the mitzvah applies to the entire congregation in shul, then one can argue that women who are still in shul would be included. The Minchas Chinuch appears to accept this approach as well, and concludes after a discussion about whether the mitzvah is time bound. Right? Let's see. Toward the Minchas Chinuch first considers whether it should be considered time bound, since it cannot be performed at night, but then writes that on a Torah level, it may be recited at night and is not considered time-bound.
Right.
So
it's there's a chibur letefillah. If the tefillah is a mitzvah she'azman grama, why would that be considered
it's its own standalone mitzvah. We're told to perform the mitzvah during tefillah.
No,
but it's got its own. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa that has nothing to do with tefillah. We're told when to do it.
so if you told them to do it, obviously then it becomes a mitzvah she'azman grama.
No, the Minchas Chinuch learns that it's not so. That it technically is supposed to be done daily. So normally mitzvah sasei shman grama has a specific
ask you, if you forgot to say birkas kohanim, right, and you find that there's a kohen there afterwards, what, you're going to go call the kohen and say, okay, give everybody a bracha here in the shul? You're not going to do that. You're only going to do that bisman shel tefillah.
I hear, but it's not the same. It's not the same mitzvah as mitzvah's tefillah. It's inserted in there. It's the getter is when the kohanim bless us. It may not necessarily make it a time-bound mitzvah because birkas kohanim is they're supposed to do it every day. So it's not necessarily based on time. That's all he's saying. Therefore, l'chora, according to Minchas Chinuch, women are included It's not considered a time bar mitzvah. That's one of the reasons why women are mechuyev in tefillah, because they have to do tefillah every day. When the fact that we have to do mitzvah 3 times a day in the morning, all that, but the basic ikar tefillah, they have a chiyuv to do. Now, what is that chiyuv? So some say as long as they say moedim, it's enough. Others say no, they need more. The Shachris and Mincha are the chiyuvim. But we went through all of that about what the chiyuvim women are in by tefillah. Now, Rav Nachum Nissel writes in Rik Leib that based on this approach, women who are in shul but are in the middle of Shemona Esrei should pause in the middle to listen to the Birchas Kohanim like Kedusha. Women who are present in shul are included in the mitzvah to hear Birchas Kohanim, but they're not required to go to shul in order to hear it. Accordingly, women should pause in the middle of davening to listen to Birchas Kohanim, even if they're in the middle of Shemona Esrei. According to this opinion, men would also pause during their silent Shemona Esrei Birchas Kohanim. Rav Nissel cites in the name of Rav Yosha the one should continue to recite the silent Shemona Esrei and not pause. I'm going to save the machshava for next week, and next week we will deal with Tachanun. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, we didn't. We just left an argument with respect to whether women are required or not. What do we hold?
Where did we see an argument?
The Minchas Chinuch said that they're obligated, whereas
Right.
the Rikshay Lev says they're not obligated.
The Rikshay Lev, let's see. No, so the Rikshay Lev said,
If
women
they don't,
are
if they
in
don't go,
shul.
if not in shul, they don't have to go. But right above it, it says women are obligated. So which one is it?
I don't understand what they mean. I didn't understand what he means that they're not required to go to shul to hear it if they're obligated to hear it.
But
He said they're based on the approach that they're obligated. Women are in
Right.
shul,
it's confusing. Right?
pause in the middle of Shemona Esrei and listen to it. And then when he said they don't have to go to shul, I'm not sure why not. If they're chayiv in it, why wouldn't they be chayiv to go to shul? I didn't understand what he meant by that. I think based on the approach of the Minchas Chinuch, you'd have to say that women are mechuyev in Birchas Kohanim. Okay. Okay. Any very good, very good